The next day, we officially left campus. Lucas's old pickup truck carried all of our belongings between the two of us. A few boxes of books, some suitcases, 31 of Mitchell's potted plants, and the notebook titled Our Plan. Lucas shook his head as he drove. I still don't get it. Don't get what? Mitchell asked. Why do you need so many plants? Mitchell answered very seriously. These are assets. Lucas burst out laughing. I thought assets were money. No. Mitchell hugged a monstera to his chest. Plants are capital too. I watched the two of them argue and laughed the whole way. Maybe this was the last time we'd be this carefree, like fresh graduates with nothing to worry about. The first 2 months after graduation were nothing like I'd imagined. I sent out more than 50 job applications, got 12 rejection emails for interview invitations. In the end, only one company in Portland took me on as a business analyst. Mitchell found a job too, a studio that designed flowers for hotels and events. The pay wasn't much, but enough to get by. We rented an apartment smaller than the one we'd had in college. The living room barely fit an old sofa and a table for two. The window looked out onto a parking lot. No pretty view, but Mitchell still filled the place with plants. Why are you so into plants? I asked. Mitchell was wiping the leaves of an orchid. Because plants make any place feel like home. I looked around the cramped apartment, then looked at him. Yeah, it really did feel like home. Working was completely different from being a student. I usually got home around 7 at night. Mitchell came home even later, sometimes close to 10. One evening he walked in with his shoulders slumped. I set down the book I was reading. Tired? Mitchell nodded. 3 weddings today. The clients changed their minds 5 times. The bride cried. The groom lost his temper. The whole team barely got a break. I pulled out a chair for him. Dinner's still warm. Mitchell sat down. After a few bites, he smiled. You know what I like best after work? What? Coming home. Then he looked at me. And seeing you. I reached over and took his hand. Same here. Little by little, we developed a small nightly ritual. After dinner, we'd walk around the neighborhood for about 30 minutes. No phones. No talking about work. Just telling each other little bits and pieces. One evening Mitchell told me, an 80-year-old man bought exactly 1 rose today. For what? For his wife. They've been married 58 years. I smiled. That's beautiful. What about you? Anything fun today? I laughed. My boss spent 10 minutes looking for his glasses. And they were on his head. Mitchell laughed until he cried. Those silly little stories became the part of the day I looked forward to most. A year into working, things began to settle. My salary went up. Mitchell was given bigger projects to manage. We opened a joint savings account. At the top of the passbook, Mitchell stuck a little note. The Flower Shop and Bookshop Fund. I looked at the first number. $500. I joked. At this rate, we'll open it when we're 60. Mitchell laughed. That's fine. I can wait. I looked at him. So can I. But life rarely goes according to plan. One morning in early fall, I was at work when I got a call from Mitchell. His voice was very quiet. Hey. Yeah. I just saw my dad. I was a little surprised. Mitchell's parents had been separated for years. His dad lived in a different town. And he wants to sell the flower shop. I went quiet. It was the shop Mitchell's grandparents had built up over more than 30 years. Why? His health. He can't keep running it anymore. Mitchell sighed. He asked if I wanted to take it over. I understood right away why he'd called. This wasn't just an offer. It was a fork in the road. If he said yes, Mitchell would have to leave Portland. If he said no, the flower shop tied to his whole childhood would belong to someone else. That evening, Mitchell sat out on the balcony for a long time. I brought out 2 cups of hot tea. What are you thinking about? Mitchell smiled sadly. I feel selfish. Why? I want the shop. But I also want to be here with you. I sat down beside him. Mitchell. Yeah. Remember the first line you wrote in the notebook? Yes. What did you write? Mitchell smiled. Open a place where you'll always be. I nodded. Right? So, your dream was never just about a shop. It was always about us. Mitchell turned to look at me. A flicker of hope lit up in his eyes. Tanner. I smiled. I'm not finished yet. If that shop is really worth keeping, then we'll keep it together. Mitchell blinked. Together? Yeah. But your job? I'll figure something out. He looked at me for a long moment, then suddenly threw his arms around me. For the first time in years, I could feel Mitchell crying, not out of sadness, but because at last, he knew he wouldn't have to face the biggest decision of his life alone. And from that decision, the dream of a flower shop and a bookshop, once sketched in pencil in a college apartment, began moving closer to reality than ever before. 3 days later, I took time off work. Mitchell also asked for leave from the studio. We drove nearly 4 hours to the seaside town where he grew up. It was a small town. No high-rises. No busy traffic. I heard it every single day. Sunlight streamed through the glass front. Tiny specks of dust floated in the air. The wooden shelves were old. The flower arranging table was covered in scratches. The cash register was still the old push-button kind from years ago. Mitchell walked very slowly. His hand brushed lightly over each tabletop, each wooden shelf, as if greeting an old friend. I didn't interrupt, just followed quietly behind. At the back of the shop, Mitchell stopped in front of a small door. Come out here. Behind the shop was a garden. Not large, but full of flowers. An old apple tree stood in the middle. Beneath it, a wooden swing. Mitchell smiled. I used to hide here and read as a kid. I was surprised. Read? Yeah. I thought you only liked flowers. Mitchell sat down on the swing. You know who lent me my first book? Who? The old man who ran the bookshop across the street. I turned my head. Sure enough, past the low wooden fence, there was indeed an old bookshop. The sign had faded. The glass door was covered in dust. Back then, Mitchell continued, every afternoon he'd bring a book over and trade it for a bunch of flowers. No money? No. He used to say, flowers feed the soul, books feed the mind. So the two old men kept trading like that for over 20 years. I looked at the old bookshop. An idea flashed through my mind. Mitchell. Yeah. That shop. Who owns it? Mitchell sighed. Closed 2 years ago. The owner passed away. His daughter moved to California. I heard she wants to sell it. I stared at it for a long time. A flower shop, a bookshop, right next to each other, just like the drawing in Mitchell's notebook. I turned to him. Hey, yeah, I think maybe this is the place. Mitchell followed my gaze, then slowly understood. He jumped to his feet. You mean, yeah, if we can buy it, the flower shop is yours. And the bookshop, Mitchell held his breath, is yours. The air went strangely still. Only the distant sound of the waves remained. Mitchell walked over and hugged me tightly. You know something? What? I've been dreaming of this. Since sophomore year. I smiled. Me too. Only back then. I didn't know it yet. That afternoon we walked around the town. Everyone greeted Mitchell. Little Mitchell's back? Been ages since we've seen you. So much taller than before. Mitchell smiled and answered each of them. At the bakery, the owner even pressed 2 apple pies into his hands. No charge. Call it a welcome home. I watched the whole scene, then looked at Mitchell. Maybe for the first time I understood. There are places that aren't just where you're from. They're part of who you are. That evening, back at the small hotel, I opened my laptop. Mitchell was in the shower. I started running the numbers. Savings, loans, renovation costs, projected revenue, risk, profit. The figures piled up. None of it easy. Some of it downright risky. Right then, Mitchell came out. What are you doing? I turned the screen toward him. A plan. For 2 shops. Mitchell froze. Are you? Serious. I nodded. Very serious. But we'd be starting completely from scratch. Our income could drop. The pressure will be huge. Mitchell didn't let me finish. He leaned down and kissed my forehead gently. Hey, yeah. If the person starting over with me is you, then starting from scratch is worth it. I smiled. And in that exact moment, I knew a stable life in the city, a good salary, a clear career path. None of it mattered as much as a dream two young men had nurtured together for years. A dream called a flower shop and a bookshop, side by side. Deciding was the easy part. Doing it was hard. After that trip, Mitchell and I went back to Portland feeling completely different. For the first time in years, we knew exactly where we wanted to go. But also for the first time, we knew the road ahead would be full of thorns. The first thing we did was meet with a bank. The financial advisor looked over our plan, then took off his glasses. You want to buy 2 adjacent storefronts? Yes. Renovate both? Yes. And run the businesses yourselves? That's right. He tapped his pen on the desk. You're both young. That's both an advantage and a risk. I nodded. We understand. Do you really? He looked straight at us. The first 3 years are when most small shops fail. I know. Income will be unstable. I know. You might have to work 12 to 14 hours a day. I know. He turned to Mitchell. And you? Mitchell smiled. I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm only afraid that someday, when I'm old, I'll regret not having tried. The advisor was quiet for a few seconds, then smiled slightly. I like that answer. After weeks of paperwork, the loan was finally approved. Not the full amount we needed, but enough to get started. The day we signed the contract, my hand trembled slightly as I held the pen. Mitchell leaned close to my ear and whispered, Hey, yeah, don't shake. I'm shaking more than you. I laughed. Then why isn't your hand shaking? Because I'm holding your hand under the table. I looked down. Sure enough. At some point, Mitchell had quietly laced his fingers through mine. Just one discreet handhold. But it calmed me instantly. 3 months later, we officially moved to the town of Ashford. Our new apartment sat right above the flower shop, on the 2nd floor. Not big, just 1 bedroom, a small living room, a kitchen just big enough for 2. Mitchell stood in the middle of the empty room. This is going to be home. I smiled. Yeah, home. We didn't buy new furniture right away. The old dining table from Portland came with us. So did the old sofa. Even the kettle with peeling paint, Mitchell insisted on keeping. Get a new one, I said. Mitchell shook his head. It's been with us since our first jobs. You're sentimental about a kettle? Yes. I laughed. You really are strange. Mitchell wrapped his arm around mine. Lucky for me you like strange people. Yeah. Because you're strange too. Renovating the 2 shops took nearly 4 months. During the day, we painted the walls ourselves. At night, we watched tutorial videos on how to install shelves. On weekends, friends from Portland took turns driving down to help. Lucas walked in and whistled. This is the bookshop? Yeah. Tanner. What? Are you opening a bookshop or a national library? I looked at the piles of books covering the floor. Is it really that much? Lucas pointed at more than 50 cardboard boxes. You have to ask? Mitchell laughed so hard he had to lean against the wall. I told him to buy them slowly. He didn't listen. I scratched my head. Every book made me want to take it home. Lucas shrugged. Classic bookshop owner. While I sorted books, Mitchell turned the flower shop into a little garden. He built the wooden shelves himself, planted ivy in front of the door himself, designed the sign himself. The final sign held just one simple line. Mitchell Flowers. I stood looking at it for a long time. Beautiful. Mitchell turned to me. What about yours? I pointed to the sign that had just gone up. Chapter & Co. Mitchell frowned. Why not your own name? I smiled. Because I want anyone who walks in to feel like they're starting a new chapter. Mitchell nodded. Sounds just like you. There was one thing we argued about for a whole week: the space between the two shops. At first, it was just a narrow walkway. I wanted to put a few potted plants there. Mitchell wanted a long bench instead. Put a bench. Customers will sit. If they sit, they'll buy less. No. Mitchell shook his head. They'll stay longer. Stay longer. And they'll fall in love with this place. I put my hands on my hips. And if they don't buy anything? Mitchell smiled. Then that's fine too. Hey. Yeah. I don't just want to sell flowers. I want this place to make people feel at ease. I looked at the small courtyard, then nodded. Okay. We set up a white wooden bench together. Mitchell planted lavender on both sides. I added a small outdoor bookshelf. On it, a handwritten sign read, "If you haven't picked a book yet, sit and rest a while." Mitchell read it, then turned and hugged me. Hey, what? This is exactly what I dreamed of. The day before opening, the two shops were finally finished. That evening, once the cleaning was done, we stood together in the small courtyard. No customers, no traffic noise, just the warm glow of lamplight falling on two brand new signs. Mitchell suddenly took my hand. Tanner. Yeah. Remember the day we first met? Yes. You spilled coffee. I was clutching a book. Mitchell laughed. No. I was holding a bunch of sunflowers. I laughed. Right? And you? Holding a book. We looked at each other, then burst out laughing together. 10 years. From two clumsy college kids to two grown men standing in front of their dream. The road hadn't been short, but I never once regretted a single day of it. Tomorrow morning, both doors would open together, and we had no idea that the first customer to walk into the flower shop and then over to the bookshop would bring us the most beautiful gift life had ever given us. I could barely sleep the night before opening day. About every hour, I'd open my eyes and check the clock. By 4 a.m, Mitchell sat up too. He rubbed his eyes and looked at me. You're not asleep either? I laughed. Neither are you. Mitchell nodded. I keep worrying. Worrying about what? That tomorrow no one will come. I took his hand. If there are no customers, then I'll buy your flowers. Mitchell laughed. And your bookshop? I'll buy a book, but I'll be the one selling it to you. So you'll be paying me. It's still our money either way. We both laughed. The tension seemed to ease by half. 7:30 in the morning. We stood together in front of both doors. Mitchell straightened his green apron. I smoothed down my white shirt. Nervous? Mitchell asked. My hands are cold. Mine too. I held my hand out. Mitchell took it immediately. 10 seconds. Neither of us said a word. Then we both took a deep breath. Ready. Ready. The bells on both doors rang out almost at the same moment. Our dream had officially begun. The first customer wasn't young. She was an elderly woman, maybe 70 years old. She stepped into the flower shop first. Mitchell smiled. Good morning. How can I help you? The old woman looked around for a long while, then chose a small bunch of white daisies. So lovely. Mitchell carefully wrapped the flowers. While she paid, she asked, Is the bookshop next door yours too? Mitchell shook his head. No. That belongs to my partner. I was standing across the way, arranging books. I turned when I heard that. Mitchell looked over at me too. He smiled. A very peaceful smile. The old woman smiled kindly. Well then, I'd better buy a book too. A few minutes later, she came into my shop, walked around once, then chose an old novel. At the counter, she set the book down next to her flowers. You know, she said, when I was young, my husband always bought flowers, and I always bought books. For 40 years, we don't have to like the same things. We just have to always bring home what we love. I looked at Mitchell. Mitchell was looking back at me too. Neither of us said anything, but we both understood. That was exactly the life we'd always wanted. By noon, the shop started getting busier. Some people bought just a single stem. Some sat reading for nearly an hour on the bench between the two shops. a young couple carrying a baby, a group of high school students. An old man pointed at the outdoor bookshelf and said, "It's been ages since I've seen a place this unhurried." That afternoon, Lucas showed up out of nowhere, carrying a big box in his arms. Opening gift. I opened it up. Inside was a hand-carved wooden sign. It read just one line: "Flowers help people speak. Books help people listen." Mitchell read it. His eyes welled up. Lucas scratched his head. "Don't cry. It took me 3 nights to carve that." I laughed. "Crying because it's beautiful." We hung the sign in the courtyard between the 2 shops. It became the spot customers photographed the most. Late afternoon, as the flow of customers thinned out, Mitchell brought me over a small bunch of flowers. "You haven't bought any today." I took them. "Any discount for the bookshop owner?" Mitchell shook his head. "No. It's free." "Why?" "Because I promised. Every morning, you'll have flowers." I looked at the bouquet in my hands. All flowers I'd once liked but never remembered mentioning. Mitchell remembered. He always remembered. I opened the register drawer, took out a carefully wrapped book. "Your turn." Mitchell looked surprised. "For me?" "Yeah." He unwrapped it. It was a novel signed by the author, the exact book I'd been clutching the day we first met. Mitchell froze. "You? Where did you find this?" "From a collector. It took me almost a year." "Why?" I smiled. "Because I wanted you to be the first person to receive a book on the day the bookshop opened." Mitchell couldn't say a word. He just held the book tight against his chest, exactly the way he had the day I first met him. I laughed. "That gesture looks familiar." Mitchell laughed too, through tears. "Because this is the most beautiful book of my life." That evening, after closing up, we sat together on the wooden bench between the 2 shops. The street lights had come on. The scent of flowers mixed with the smell of fresh paper. The sea breeze carried a faint early spring chill. Mitchell rested his head on my shoulder. "Hey, yeah, the dream came true." I turned my head slightly, my cheek brushing his hair. "Yeah, it came true." Mitchell smiled. "Tomorrow I'll still bring you flowers. Tomorrow I'll still give you a book. The day after? Same. Next year? Same. Until we're old?" I took Mitchell's hand. "Same. Because some promises don't need to be grand. They just need, every morning when the doors open, to see the person you love still right there beside you. That's enough." Years later, people in town often asked us what the secret was to keeping both shops going so long. I would always smile and point to Mitchell, and Mitchell would point right back at me. The truth is, the secret was never the flowers, nor the books. It was simply that every day, we chose to love each other once more. No matter how busy life got, no matter how gray our hair turned, no matter how many years passed. And every morning, when I open the bookshop door, the first thing I see is still Mitchell, standing in front of the flower shop, holding a bunch of sunflowers, smiling at me just like the very first day we met at college. Some meetings seem like nothing more than chance, but it turns out they become the most beautiful opening chapter of an entire life.